A postcard from the old rock. The sea, a source of living for generations of Shetlanders, whether they were at the whaling, fishing, in the merchant navy, or nowadays harvesting mussels, salmon, or fishing from small boats. In the olden days, looking after the croft and bairns and old folk, doing hand knitting or working on the machine. The sea in all its moods, wild, roaring, crashing on the skerries, or on a bonny night, flat calm, bairns stirring a stick in the water to wonder at the mareel, or maybe a glimpse of the merry dancers abun. You would love it here in Scalloway by the sea. Maybe you will visit one day. We will be blithe to see you.
I learned to knit when I was very young. When I moved to Shetland from Orkney, I learned to knit Fair Isle for a company in Lerwick and got 10 shillings or 50 pence a yoke. It was knitting the yokes across the breast. When I was saving up to get married, I bought a knitting machine and made plain jumpers for another firm and grafted on the necks and the cuffs, making a full jumper. When I married, I moved to Scalloway, which was mainly a fishing and knitting village, and many families knitted or finished jumpers at home to make extra money. My husband was a fisherman, and through the late 1970s the fishing was very poor. We had 3 sons and money was tight, and I bought a Fair Isle knitting machine and made lots of jumpers for the men from south that worked at Sullomvo. This contributed to the household purse, and with the fishing getting poorer, it was a godsend. One Sunday morning I collapsed with exhaustion. Between knitting as much as I could and looking after the boys, it all came to a head. My husband made the very difficult decision to leave the fishing. This was hard for him, as he had a share in the fishing boat along with his father and another fisherman, and he knew that they would have to sell the boat as none of them could afford to buy him out. He went to work in the oil at Sullomvo. He hated it, but did it to keep a roof over our heads and improve our quality of life. I eventually went out to work full-time and sold my knitting machines. He missed the fishing and eventually bought a small inshore fishing boat and set creels for velvet crabs, and did this in his spare time until he took early retirement from Sullomvo. He was then able to fish full-time until he had to stop due to ill health. I only do hand knitting now for my grandchildren, so I've never lost the skills of knitting Fair Isle. I started this off saying I worked hard most of my life, and the turning point was when I retired. But when we were young, the working hard bit must have come from my mother, because she worked very hard all her life. And I remember her working at the gutting, as they called it, that's the herring fishing, at the stations in Lerwick, where she was a packer of the herring. But on the station they had the gutting shed, and it was a big shed, open at all sides but with a roof on it. But my mother worked in the open air outside in the station, all weathers. And sometimes my sister and I would go in week about in the summer holidays, because the season started from May till August. And we would take week about, going in, staying with my mother at the huts, as we called it. So all the workers were allocated a hut, very sparse, a table, a little stove for cooking and heating, a bed with a straw mattress and a cupboard, and the toilet facilities was a
curtained off area in the hut. But we enjoyed it. It was just lovely, and we loved going down on the station. And when my mother got to the top of her barrel packing, she would leave the 2 top tiers and taught my sister and I how to do that. So that was our first working, was at the Hearn station with my mother. But it was a really good insight to a working life. And on the most of the stations were owned by Scotch owners. My mother's one was owned by a Mr. William Buchan, and they were very, very nice people. Most of the workers came from Scotland. They were all Scotch, Peterhead area. My mother was the only Shetlander there. But we loved everybody, and everybody got on great. And they were also the coopers, that was the barrel workers or makers. But they usually, when the barrel was finished being packed, they would seal it with the lid and clamp down with the iron bit at the top. And there were one cooper, he was a big, Charlie was his name, and he always bought my sister and I a bar of chocolate, which was such a treat, because we didn't often get treats, because, as I say, my mother was the breadwinner in the family. My father wasn't able to work, so he was probably what they call now a house husband. So, and then when the Hearn finished, my mother, she worked in the local fish factories as well. At the kippering, that was like the Hearn being kippered, and in the stations here, there was one here in Scalway, the National, and again, the season was when the Scotch women would come up and work, and there were a lot of the Shetlanders that went too. She worked at Lowry's fishing factory at West Shore, she worked at the Ice Atlantic. So the hard working bit comes from my mother. In my working life I worked hard as well, but then we had sad times in between all our lives. But starting work and retirement was good. I can go to bed when I retire any time I want, rise any time I want, and I enjoy retirement.
My husband John and I are Christians, and our faith is central to our lives. John had been a fisherman since he was in his teens, and it was his whole life. He worked his way up, and he eventually gained his skipper's ticket and got his own boat. In the 90s, when John had been fishing for around 30 years, the fishing got very difficult with government intervention, with fishing quotas and restrictions. Many fishermen were fishing illegally at this time, just to make ends meet, but John was determined to keep within the law. Boats were being decommissioned and broken up, but thankfully John managed to sell his boat. Despite this, we were left in debt, and we feared we might lose the house to pay this back. We really didn't know what was going to happen. I would often be hoovering and cleaning and wondering if this would be the last time I'd be cleaning this house. But with a lot of support and prayer, God allowed us to keep the house. John left the fishing at this time, which meant a whole life change for us both, but we adapted. This experience changed our lives, but also made us even more thankful to God for the support of the people around us and for the things we have.
Tifa, you're right, darling. How it's charming. I'm really glad and willing to tell you how lovely and nice Portsmouth is. It's really a city with great nature. Portsmouth is a seafront city, amazing place to live, great and comfortable community. I was at the seafront with my family. We really had a good memory times together. Children had fun, swam in the sea, relaxed, had some refreshments, and also crack on with swimming.
Hi Sammy, I hope uh, I hope you are well while reading this postcard. So now I am living in the Portsmouth seafront. Living in the seafront is one of my dreams. When I feel stressed, I went to the beach to see the waves that will help me to relax. And sometimes me and my parents went to the beach for lunch and uh, family times, and and the most beautiful thing on the beach to see a sunset on the beach. It's very quiet and very beautiful time at the beach.
I come from a city located in the center of the country of Syria, a long distance from the sea, so it was difficult to visit the sea except in rare cases due to transportation difficulties. This made me love the sea and wish to live in one of the cities overlooking the sea. A year ago, I moved to the city of Portsmouth, and I knew nothing this city beforehand. As soon as I approached the outskirts of the city, I noticed that it looks like an island, a long beach overlooking the sea with tranquility. In the sound of the sea waves intersecting with the sound of the seagulls and sound of ships passing by. Later, I discovered that is a historic city, including ancient castles and museums that take us back to what happened hundreds of years ago. I have a phobia of swimming. However, I love walking on the edge of the sea and on the sands. I also share my worries to the sea. I feel like it inspires me and makes me more comfortable. At the end, I consider the sea is a part of me, and it helps me a lot to meditate and think well.
Hello mom, how are you doing? It's a long time without hearing from you, but I'm so safe. I am living in the city called Portsmouth, where I have lived for 6 months. This city has lots of things, which includes game places for young kids, where you take kids for fun. The city also has historical places where wars of long ago used to base. This includes historic dockyards and the old boats at the sea. The sea also has beach where people go swimming during summer season. We experience a lot of fresh air which comes from the sea.
Hello, I am Puria. I am happy living here because I love the sea. Fortunately, my house is in South Sea, which is near the coast. When the weather is good, I usually go to the beach for a walk, sit down, and watch the beautiful sea. I also enjoy listening to the soothing sound of the waves. These activities help me relax in a unique way, given that I am an introvert. Being on the beach genuinely makes me happy, and I prefer to be alone in that serene environment. Unfortunately, in my city in Iran, there was no sea. Therefore, it's very beneficial for me to be here.
For me, the ocean, the coast, the sea has been a place of comfort, peace, intrigue, and awe since I was really young. And as I've grown older, I've been fascinated by understanding how other people around me feel and think about this blue world that surrounds us. Ocean literacy has been one way that I have explored this in my work, using an ever-changing framework to better understand these diverse and different values and relationships that people hold and why they matter. By using different methods and working across and between disciplines and groups, I have learned new ways of understanding these relationships. During a week spent co-creating a theatre performance with Shetland Youth Theatre, we used theatre practice to explore what mattered to young people on those islands, using the lens of storytelling and some yelly cat screams as they told us that they wanted their voices to be heard. I loved this week and found it to be one of the most rewarding career experiences I've had, building trust and making space for those relationships. Closer to home, the site of Chepstow in the Wye Valley has been a real challenge. And while there has been support from policy and the local authority through the local council, getting engagement in all of the things we were doing has been tricky. The community voice method process, however, worked really well. Another opportunity for me to learn new skills and talk to lots of interesting people. But it was a challenge to get these mostly environmentally conscious group of people to think beyond their beloved river and to extend their concerns to the coast and ocean. And a challenge for me as a salty person to be okay with that. Transdisciplinary research has taught me new methods and challenged me to work outside my own comfort zones, while also allowing my love of theatre to become an everyday part of my work. It's almost like bringing the two parts of myself together.
It's early morning and the sun is rising over a calm sea. Rays of light arc down through the clouds, creating pools of gold shimmering on the surface of the water. Some people think landscape photography is a relaxing thing, but in the moment I was trying to think about aperture, film speed, ISO setting, composition, move the camera a few centimetres and the photograph changes, use of filters, etc. And the light was quickly changing, a perfect composition quickly missed as the fleeting light disappears. In the back of my mind was the subsequent editing of the photograph. Taking photographs in a raw file format means keeping all the richness of the light and colours, but at the expense of manually spending many hours editing in front of a computer. Happily, this is part of the process I really enjoy, trying to bring a photograph to life in a way that speaks to the feelings I had when I was taking the photograph in the field. The Diverse Marine Values project offered the opportunity to think about how we value nature in relation to the multiple ways we experience, engage with nature. It set the stage to be able to contextualise epistemology and ontology in relation to how 3 case study areas were negotiated by a group of researchers, particularly in terms of how they use their approaches to understand diverse values. During the project there was an opportunity for me to add a photo essay to the suite of methods being used. This gave me a direct opportunity to collaborate with Victoria and through connecting photographs and narrative to explore relational values. This opportunity was framed by many years of interest in exploring different ways of knowing. As a student I initially studied art and was convinced I would be an artist. However, I quickly changed direction and after studying geography A-level decided to study environmental science at university. I quickly realised I was drawn more to philosophy and environmental ethics. This resulted in my first engagement with ideas like deep ecology, green political thinking and others. While many of my peers were happy in a lab, hunkering down over bubbling cauldrons, I felt drawn to thinking about nature and the place of humans. During the degree I realised my love of learning and research, so I moved on to a PhD incorporating archaeology and soil micromorphology, nature and culture. I immediately experienced the limitations of representative sampling, and that was a pivotal moment when I started to read into the philosophy of science and really thinking about science from a social construction perspective. An early significant moment in the Diverse Marine Values project was the first scoping visit to Shetland with Erica and Victoria. The emphasis was on my interactions with the material, non-human environment, in particular aspects like the quality of light, movements and patterns of waves, action of the wind. I was able to take a range of photographs that allowed exploration of special moments of connection to coastal places. For instance, photographs opened up a way of experiencing the past, ruins, geological strata, patterns in the sand. For me, this individual exploration is a fundamental part of encountering diverse values. It is not about value elicitation. I am not exploring other people's values. Rather, I am creating a material representation of my coastal experience that will then be shared through exhibitions, web galleries, etc. The transdisciplinary experience was strengthened all through the project as we had many meetings talking about evidence, data, methods, values. Somehow being able to reflect across science, economics, arts and humanities provided a foundation for understanding the richness and depth of the multiple ways that diverse values can be engaged with. It remains to be seen if the photo essay we create can form the starting point for further cultural exchange around the importance and meaning of the coast. There are certainly plenty of opportunities for further collaborations through writing, books, writing groups, etc. As photographs and text enter into a broader circuit of culture, new meanings can be created and new values form. This is beyond my control, but it feels like the photo essay is an opportunity to open up thinking about the coast and encourage others to form and reflect on their own values and why the coast is important to them.